Hey guys, I'm Reagan.
And I'm Ryan, and we're the co-founders of Vaer watches. Today we're going to be walking you through an upcoming release, our G7 GMT watch. So the G7 line builds on the core features and case of our really popular D5 and D7 dive lines, but with the added functionality of a GMT. So essentially, it has, in addition to your normal 3 hands, a 24-hour format hand so that you can track time in a second time zone, even a third time zone when used in that way. You can also use it as a compass, which is pretty awesome functionality. So this is definitely our most technically advanced watch. It's definitely the ultimate tool watch in our lineup, and it has the highest fit and finish of any watches we've produced. So we're really excited to get it on your wrist.
Awesome. So yeah, for the video, Ryan's going to do a hands-on summary and breakdown of exactly how to operate the GMT, and it's definitely a little complicated. So we're going to provide a lot of insight into exactly how the watch works. And then I'm going to wrap the video up with an overview of the design features and just kind of a higher level kind of concept of exactly why we built this watch and why we're so excited for it. So without further ado, let's get into the specs and features.
So a really quick summary / history on a GMT watch. So at its core, a GMT watch allows you to track time in 2 time zones. So it actually was built out of necessity when commercial air travel started back in the 1950s. In 1954, Pan Am was having an issue. Their pilots would take off in one time zone and land in another and be a little bit lost. And so they actually went to Rolex and requested a watch to be built that could track 2 time zones simultaneously. So original GMTs were simply a tool for pilots who needed to track time zones, where they were leaving from and where they were landing in. Nowadays, it's incredibly common for anyone really to be traveling across multiple time zones regularly, and very useful to be able to see your time zone at home or time zone where you're traveling to at a quick glance, or even if you have family or friends living in another time zone or business partners that you talk to frequently, to be able to quickly look at your watch and see what time it is there is a really useful tool. Alright, so here on the table we have 3 of our GMT options. Reagan's going to do a dive into each design, but I'm going to start off with the specs and features of the watches. So for the most part, the core case and design features of these watches are shared with the D5 and D7 line. So we have a 39mm case with a 48mm lug-to-lug, so that's the height of the watch. They have a 20mm lug width, so they're compatible with all of our straps across all of our lineup. They're rated to 200 meters, so from our perspective, 200 meters is completely sufficient for any human use in the ocean. And so we're really pleased to offer them with 200 meters, and they're ready to go for any ocean-related or water-related activities. They do have an exhibition case back with sapphire crystals, so you can see that gorgeous movement. They have a screw-down crown, as with all of our watches. They also have a heaping portion of X1 grade superluminova, so really great nighttime visibility. Now in terms of differentiating features, instead of that ceramic bezel on our D5 and D7, we used an aluminum bezel. We think it gives a really cool, distinct vintage look, so we're excited about that. Now our G7 line houses an ETA 2893-2 GMT movement. It's a really incredible movement. We've decorated it with both, excuse my pronunciation, perlage and Côte de Genève. So it's a gorgeous exhibition case back. The exhibition case back is sapphire crystal. These movements actually have become quite rare. They're quite hard to get your hands on. So at this price point, you're not going to find another watch with this specific ETA. Now I'm going to walk you through basic operation of the GMT. So we have here the time set to noon locally, and the GMT hand also set to that local time of noon, 12 noon. Now let's track the time in Geneva, Switzerland. This watch was assembled in Switzerland, so let's go ahead and do that. Geneva is 8 hours ahead, so we're going to want to get to, instead of 12, to that 20. So we simply rotate the 20 around to match where the GMT hand sits, right there. And we're now tracking time in Geneva, Switzerland. And so your primary hands will continue to track time. Now it's 12:03 here. As time progresses, this will continue to move, and whatever this is on that 24-hour bezel will be the time in your chosen place, which is Geneva. So when this is over to 3 p.m. here, we're going to see this move over to 11 p.m. in Geneva. Now another really cool feature of this specific colorway is you'll see, we know it's 12 noon here, but actually the red and the blue denote daytime and nighttime. So you'll know based on this hand, if it's in blue, it's nighttime. If you're calling friends or family, you obviously may not want to disturb them late at night. When that GMT hand is within this blue range, you're going to know that it's nighttime there. Do not disturb time. So really cool little feature there as well. Now, as mentioned earlier in this video, the GMT also can be used as a compass when you're in the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to cover that in our deep dive to GMT functionality in a separate video. So let's talk straps for this lineup. As with all of our watches across the whole lineup, each watch comes with 2 straps of your choice. As I said, they're 20mm lugs, so the straps across our full lineup are compatible. That is except for bracelets. The bracelets do have a custom fit per watch. So the strap you're seeing here is our FKM Tropic strap. This is default on every dive watch. It's honestly a fantastic strap. We've experimented quite a bit with different rubber materials for the Tropics, and FKM is really the best in class. So we're happy to be offering that as your default strap, your ocean ready strap. Now, after your first strap, you get the choice of a second strap. We're going to be offering as a choice our Horween leather lined straps. So these are made in the USA with Horween leather. They're quick release. They're incredibly beautiful straps. We know that leather is a bit unconventional on a dive watch or a bezeled watch, but we love the look, so it's definitely something we're going to be offering. Great choice, and that will be offered in tan and in black for the different watch varieties. And then also something we're excited to be releasing alongside this watch is our new premium bracelet. Now this will be included in the price. Either the leather or the bracelet is included in the standard price. This new premium bracelet is upgraded from our standard bracelet. It has a bit higher quality of finishing to it. The links now are screw links instead of push pins, and I'm going to show a quick operation of those. The clasp has been upgraded. It has a dive style lockdown, but now press with a milled clasp there and a press in release. And the taper is now from 20mm down to 16mm. So we've worked with a lot of different customers and even media outlets and experts, you could say, on trying to figure out what the ideal premium bracelet would be, and we're really proud of this one. It's an absolutely gorgeous bracelet. It is also still quick release, so you can simply press those 2 little pins in and it's released. So really easy installation compared to a traditional bracelet where you need tools, and it's much more difficult to get on and off. Now in terms of sizing the bracelet, again, we've added, let's just take this off here. We've added screw links now, and those screw links generally should be able to be changed with household items. So I have here trusty Leatherman. You could also probably have maybe an eyeglass screwdriver, and I'm just going to show you how easy that is. So now that we've changed those links to screw pins instead of push pins, you can use, as I said, an eyeglass screwdriver or a screwdriver on a multi-tool perhaps to actually unscrew the pins directly and size your bracelet. You can change your links at home, pop that in and screw it back in. Still not incredibly easy, of course. Bracelets are a bit more complicated, but common household tools and a little bit of time, and you can resize your bracelet on your own. So again, really excited to have this premium bracelet on the watch. There's also 4 points of micro adjustment. So in addition to those links, you can adjust it exactly to your wrist within those 4 points of micro adjustment. It looks gorgeous. The finishing on the bracelet's beautiful, and it's definitely one of our favorite options for these watches.
Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed that in-depth review of the specs and features of this new watch. Now I'm going to provide a little bit more context on some of the design decisions we made with the new G7 Meridian, and also provide some justifications on why we think you should be picking this one up. So let's start things off by looking at the naming convention for the new model, and it is again the G7 Meridian. Unlike with our dive watch line where we had the D5 and D7 line and then many models within that, the Arctic, Atlantic, etc. For the G7, we're launching it with a single core design, which is the Meridian, and that Meridian design is available in 3 distinct colorways: the Pepsi red and navy version, the black and gold version I have here on bracelet, and of course the all navy colorway as well. So those 3 versions, but they're all the G7 Meridian and just in different colors. Just wanted to clarify that. Now in terms of the name itself, the G7, if you're unfamiliar with the Vaer lineup, is a relation to the fact that it's a Swiss-made watch. And by that I mean, if you look at the other watches we have in our lineup, we have the A7, which is our Swiss-made automatic, our D7, which is our Swiss-made diver, and therefore the G7 would be our Swiss-made GMT. In terms of the name Meridian, as again, if you're familiar with the lineup, you can look at our other watches. All of our dive watches are named after oceans or bodies of water. So we have the D7 Arctic, the D7 Atlantic, the D5 Pacific, D5 Tropic. For the Meridian, we wanted to carry on somewhat of that tradition of, you know, tying our watches to geography and travel and global destinations to some degree, but we wanted to obviously move beyond the water, and you know, and Meridian is a representation of, you know, lines of longitude on, you know, the global map, and, you know, obviously relating very closely to world time. So we think it's an awesome sounding word, and we also think it's an absolutely perfect fit for a GMT. So I really, that just is a little bit more context on what the name means and what it represents and how it fits within the whole Vaer lineup. So without further ado, getting beyond that stuff, let's now look a little bit more at the specific features on the actual watch itself. Alright guys, so now I'm going to provide a little bit of a closer look at some of the design details on the new G7 Meridian, as well as just some kind of explanations of maybe why you'd be interested in purchasing this new watch. So the first thing to say, I think you're going to notice in picking this watch up in person is, wow, is it absolutely beautiful. I mean, obviously I'm slightly biased, but really and truly, I think this is just an absolutely stunning watch, regardless, you know, of what your budget is. I think this watch outshines watches in the $10,000 range and even above. It really looks great from every single angle, and I think it's going to be hard to find people who would disagree with that. You know, in addition to the straight-on view, I think there's a lot to really like about this new Meridian dial design. I mean, Ryan and I spent a lot of time working on it. It's a synthesis of a lot of kind of the design language we've used in the past. You know, the clean symmetry of the no-date arrangement. That's something that we've learned both by surveying customers, talking to industry experts, and just seeing from own success of previous models. You know, we had a lot of success with the D5 and D7 Arctic dial arrangement. It's been our most popular diver, and we've tried to bring that over to the Meridian, although making some subtle changes. The other thing worth mentioning, if you're familiar with kind of the Vaer design language, is we've continued the highlighting at the 2, the 4, the 8, and the 10. The 4 dots, you know, on the dial is something that we use in almost all of our dial arrangements, kind of a calling card to some degree for Vaer. Other things to make mention, you know, just on initial view, you know, we lean very much into the retro and vintage aesthetic. You know, we love watches from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's when in our opinion, kind of the heyday of watch design. And so we also kind of trend towards that in all of our releases, both in kind of more, you know, sensible designs, you know, in terms of sizing and, you know, proportions. We don't really go in for that oversized look, but also just in terms of, you know, materials, finish, and otherwise, is on, in the case of the G7 Meridian, is on an anodized aluminum bezel. This is something that was used on the early GMTs from the 1950s. And while we have chosen to use ceramic on other dive models we've released in the past, we wanted, both for aesthetic reasons and kind of a calling card to the past for this model, to use, you know, anodized aluminum. And I think we're in good company. I made mention of this in our release of the D4 solar diver video, that, you know, anodized aluminum bezels are used most famously probably on Tudor, which, you know, can be $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 watches, depending on the model. So we're definitely in good company. And again, it really just comes down to aesthetic taste. At the end of the day, you know, Ryan and I often make design decisions based on what we think looks good. And I personally love the look of the aluminum finish, especially in this colorway. While I do think ceramic looks good on GMTs, I definitely think, particularly at modern day Rolexes and otherwise, it's a much more of a sporty look, and especially with the oversized numerals and whatnot, it starts to get a little bit crowded in my opinion. And again, it just looks very technical and modern, and well, you know, that's great for some people. Because our design language is very much rooted in a historical aesthetic and a refined aesthetic from the past, that's why we chose you know, to continue with the aluminum design for this model. At the same time, there is added functionality with the applied lume dot at the 12 o'clock index, or the 24-hour marker on the 24-hour outer ring. So turning the watch around, you know, looking at this thing from every single angle, you know, of course it shines with the new design. It looks fantastic from straight on, but as we turn the watch around and shift and look at different low angles, you're gonna start to realize that, you know, there's just about no angle in which this watch doesn't absolutely look stunning. So, you know, calling card of all Vaer watches is this beautiful radial satin brushed finish, and I think it looks absolutely stunning here. What, you know, is a really beautiful is this high contrast between the satin brush finish here and the high polished chamfering that we have on the twisted lugs. And, you know, again, it can be hard, or it can be easy to miss on the website as well, but as you slowly rotate over the oversized bezel, which is, you know, both ergonomic and a design feature, the oversized bezel underside, while the outer ring of the coin edge grip is in a nice satin brush, the underside is actually in a high polished finish. So you get this beautiful contrast, not only within the bezel, but this beautiful meeting point of the really almost liquid looking finish of the high polish meeting where the bezel meets the case. And you know, what you're gonna find on wrist is just this incredible play of light as the different angles bounce off of each other. It's really just this cool mirror finish. So, you know, I could go crazy talking about it. As you can see, I have a lot of enthusiasm for this design. We worked hard on you know, executing this. And again, regardless of price point, I think this case is just one of the most beautiful watch cases, you know, available on the market today, and I stand by that. So, you know, if you disagree, let us know in the comments. And then the other thing, of course, as we flip the watch over, you know, this is in some ways what you're paying for, and we've always maintained the ideal here at Vaer is, you know, when you are investing in an expensive and sought after movement, it's kind of fun to be able to see what you're paying for. And so we always, when possible, have leaned into exhibition casebacks for our automatic movements. And I think it does a great justice to the ETA movement here. Looking at the rotor, you have the beautiful and, you know, Swiss calling card of the Côte de Genève finishing, which, you know, is those kind of distinctive lines you see running down the rotor. And for those just getting into automatic watches, the rotor is essentially the piece of the movement that's applying centrifugal force and actually tightening the spring and actually making the movement work. So it has a function, but it's also very beautiful at the same time. Looking deeper into the movement, you see the heat-treated blue screws, which is a premium upgrade and premium finishing that we use on our very high-end Swiss automatic and mechanical watches, as well as the perlage finish, which is kind of that radial brushed circular design that you'll see within the movement. So as I think you're probably gonna be aware of by just watching this video, is this is a beautiful and fantastic watch. Probably the next question you have, if you are someone who's considering making the purchase, is, you know, why is it priced the way it is, and, you know, why should I buy this relative to other watches on the market, or perhaps other watches in the Vaer lineup? And if you kind of look at other watches that we're selling right now, you know, there is competition. You have here the American assembled D5 Arctic White, a very popular model and something that, you know, we've had a lot of success with over the past 2 years. But then even below that, at least in terms of, you know, a price point and, you know, I guess specs list, is you have our D4 Solar Quartz. And this is actually my everyday watch. This is what I wear in the ocean, surfing on a near daily basis. So it might be a little bit worked in and worn out, and I have it on the NATO strap here. So the question you have potentially is, you know, where does this stack up? And then you can also imagine here, although I don't have an example to demonstrate, but you have other watches which might be from, you know, more renowned Swiss luxury brands that, you know, this is around the $1,200 price point, this is around a $600 price point, and this is around a $350, $400 price point, depending on if you want the bracelet. So again, here you have a Swiss luxury watch that might be $4,000, might be $8,000, might be $12,000, might be $20,000. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, if I do want a dive watch, you know, I want it in water, I want a certain aesthetic, but which of these makes sense for me? And I think really the question that you should be asking yourself is, you know, what am I planning on doing with this watch? Is it the only watch in my collection? And at a bigger thing is, where do I see my relationship with watches in general going over the next year? But definitely further than that as well, over the next 5 years, 10 years and beyond. And I think watches are expensive products. They're in many ways communicated and marketed as investments. And as you get into the world of high-end watches, Vaer included, I think this is where you want to start thinking about building that purchase and collection. Again, as I say, this is my everyday watch. It's a solar quartz, which is great. It's 20 ATM, just like these others. I can put it on a great bracelet. It looks fantastic. But at the same time, other than the fact that it's a Vaer and it has sentimental and personal value, a quartz movement, a Japanese quartz movement, which is what this is, ultimately doesn't have the same long-lasting cachet and value as you're going to get into, you know, a Japanese automatic movement, which this is, or in this case, a Swiss automatic movement with a GMT that happens to be from one of the most renowned movement manufacturers in the world, which is ETA. So that's really just a decision of, you know, residual value and otherwise. So if it's just the everyday function and you really don't care, so to speak, about the long-term residual value, although this is obviously going to hold a certain degree of value, as you push higher up into the price point, you're going to be investing in higher and higher end movements. And just to kind of communicate that point, the ETA movement that is powering the GMT, the resale value or the retail value of just the movement alone is higher for the most part than the retail price of a brand new D4 solar watch. So again, think of it like cars, think of it as other things, is really as the price point goes up, you're spending more for the specs and performance of the movement you're purchasing. So really that's going to come down to, you know, individual needs and behaviors. But I think probably the other very relevant discussion is this watch that's not on the table, which may be from a brand like Tudor, maybe it's from a brand like Omega or Rolex. How do these watches compare? Hopefully what you can tell from just kind of watching this video, and hopefully we can validate through third-party reviews in the coming weeks and months ahead, is that fit and finish wise, this is going to stack up incredibly well with those more luxury brand name products. And in terms of performance, in terms of specs, in terms of lume, in terms of even the kind of prestige of the ETA movement, you're getting an incredible amount of value here at the $1,200 price point. As a reference, now I don't know if they still do this, but Panerai, which is a very, you know, high-end brand, used the ETA 2893 on some of their GMT movements, and I believe that was retailing for, you know, $8,000, maybe $10,000. And there are other examples. If you look in micro brand forums and other watch forums, you can find, you know, historical watches that were released a couple of years ago that were using the 2893. And 100% they were very, very expensive watches. So if you're asking what's the difference between that $8,000 Panerai and this $1,200 Vaer G7 Meridian, I would plainly answer, you know, it's a different brand name, but otherwise you're really getting something of very comparable value, which is why when you actually look at price point, I think, you know, the G7 is just an absolute steal, but that's ultimately kind of what Vaer is all about. We are a micro brand, we're a direct-to-consumer brand, and we use value at the very basis. So, and the rule of thumb that we typically try to use is that we price our watches in a way to compete with those that are, between 2 and 3 times the average retail price point. So hopefully at this stage of the video, I've done a good enough job explaining, some of the design details and value propositions for the GMT that you've gone from being, mildly interested in the release to saying, okay, I want this and I got to figure out which one of these designs I actually want. So the guidance that I would provide here is that, we do offer at launch the GMT in 3 distinctive colorways. All 3 of the designs are the Meridian design, so there's no differentiation between handset or dial arrangement between the 3, and of course the specs are all universal, so everything I've been talking about regarding this red and navy variant holds true with both the Meridian Gold and the Meridian Navy here. So really the choice in design is really going to come down to aesthetics. Now from surveying and otherwise, just providing you guys some information of what we've learned, in terms of making our inventory orders. The Pepsi variant has received the most interest from surveys, and we expect this one to be the best seller. So that might be useful information for you. And I think in many ways that's this design is synonymous with what a GMT represents. The original 1950s Rolex GMT Master was a navy and red bezel variant, so very, very similar in terms of aesthetic as this. And so I think for that reason, there's a special place in a lot of collectors' hearts for the Pepsi design. And of course, it's also kind of a unique and rare opportunity to integrate red on a bezel. It rarely happens, or in that case, a 2-tone bezel as well. Now, to detract from that, I think what we've heard from, especially those within, very much the collector and enthusiast community is, there has been, a lot of Pepsi colorways done within the GMT. It's kind of the default design. So maybe you already have a Pepsi design, or maybe it's just something that, friends have, or you've just seen again and again and again. So that's where I think, we're really excited with the other 2 colorways. And as much as we do think this design is great, we're also incredibly enthusiastic to say that the other 2 colorways really stand on their own and are absolutely fantastic, and we're just so excited with how these came out that we will very likely use design learnings from both of these models on future releases. The navy is just beautiful, one because it's monochromatic, but also it's our first watch with using the dive case that has brought so much color into the overall look, and wow, it really looks good. So in addition to, a very, beautiful though very dark navy bezel, we also have used a sunray finish on the dial, which, depending on the angle you look at it, can appear almost black. But once you get it into broad daylight and in direct sun, it's gonna shimmer and shine and absolutely look beautiful. I think it looks great on both of these leather straps, though I would personally recommend it on the tan version of our USA-made Horween leather. I just think that color combination is absolutely fantastic. I also think the navy being kind of monochromatic looks great with so many of the NATO straps. I love it on the khaki strap. I love it on the sand strap. These are all sold separately, but again, it's just such a classic look, and we're really excited to bring navy into kind of the dive world of our watches, and it's something that's been requested for a long time. And to give you a little preview, we have more navy watches coming soon, so if you like the look of this, stay tuned. We have a lot more watches as well. Moving in, this is again something that's very new in terms of the gold variation. We had earlier this year the A12 ceremony release, which was our first watch to kind of experiment and play with moving away from just the traditional steel finishing, and that was quite popular, and I think it really looked good. So we wanted to add a little bit of glitz and glimmer to the dive watch line, the GMTs as well. And wow, I think it looks good. I mean, it's really, I'm not being over exaggerating here, but it's hard, honestly, for me to choose personally which one of these 3 I like the best. I really like them all. I guess the only guidance I would say, just for those who are maybe having a hard time deciding themselves, is I think, you know, the most traditional, if you only have one GMT and you just want that kind of one GMT piece in your collection, I think the Pepsi is that very safe bet in that way. However, if you already have a bunch of Pepsi designs, or you want to go with something that maybe is a little bit more distinctive and a little bit more unusual, then and you just have so many steel bracelet, you know, dive watches in your collection, I think it's kind of a unique opportunity as well to get a watch that just works so seamlessly on such a beautiful strap, and that has both the kind of the presence and refinement of, you know, the Horween leather here, but also has the everyday functionality of the Tropic strap. Now, if you love all three of these strap options and you have a little bit of extra budget, you can always add, you can purchase, you know, the GMT with the stainless steel premium bracelet, and of course you get the FKM strap with it, and then you can purchase these Horween leather straps for, I believe, around $100 each separately. And then you can really be good to go. They're all quick release, they're all easily interchangeable. So then you just have a real plethora of options. So I think that's, for those with a little bit of budget, I think that is an absolutely fantastic option. All right, guys, I think that just about covers everything we have to say about the new G7 Meridian.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. We love producing these videos, so if you have ideas for future videos, if you have questions, anything like that at all, feel free to comment or feel free to email us. But thank you again for watching.
Thanks, guys.